Hello, hello. Welcome to Healthy Perspectives, a podcast that takes on current cultural and social issues through a clinical lens. Hello, hello. All right, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we appreciate your time. And today I'm going to start off with something a little different. We, over the weekend, had another attempt on Donald Trump's life. I have told you many, many times, I am not getting political on my show. What I'm going to do is attempt to bring some humanity into it. This is the second time since July that this has occurred, and this is absolutely unacceptable behavior, period. January 24th of 2023, I put together a podcast about violence. On April the 10th of 2023, I did another one on violence. Again in July, the 15th, right after the assassination attempt, the first time, I put together another podcast. And then on July the 19th, I brought to everybody's attention, anybody who was paying attention to us at least, that we immediately, within 4 days, we're right back at the kind of communication that causes an increase in the tendency toward violence. Clearly, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that this occurs. I wish that humanity were better than this, and clearly we're not. There are people in this world who do not understand the importance of managing themselves. And a lot of people today have been talking about who's at fault. And let's be super clear. I'm not here to blame anybody. My effort as a therapist is to raise everybody up in a way that's effective. And sometimes that means we have to tell people when they're right and wrong, meaning there's a social a structure that's in place that says these behaviors are not okay and will not be condoned. These behaviors are acceptable and can be condoned. And we've lost our way, frankly. We have lost our way in this area. We, for whatever reason, and there are plenty of reasons, we no longer accept social pressure as as a means of correcting inappropriate social behaviors. And the problem with this is it actually exacerbates the most extreme symptomology. This, by the way, is not even what my podcast is exactly about today. I've been planning today's podcast to be about wrongful prosecution, but it kind of fits. So we'll get into this. What I want you to know as a takeaway is people know other people who are potentially violent. And if you know somebody like that, you have a responsibility to yourself and to everybody around you. I don't want to shame you into it. And yet, I got to be honest. I'm not beyond correcting people into the behavior that is socially acceptable when it comes to extreme measures like violence, suicide, homicide. These are exceptions in the clinical world when it comes to autonomy. You can lose your autonomy if you are violent to others or violent to yourself. You can lose autonomy. And it's justifiable loss of autonomy. There's a reason for that, folks. Because you and I have got to hold true to the message that we are not here to harm ourselves or one another. period. That was a little rant. Let's go ahead and jump into the meat of what I was going to talk about today. Today, we're going to take a relational look at wrongful prosecution, in part because wrongful prosecution, this is kind of where it ties in. Wrongful prosecution can cause violent tendencies. Don't know if you know that or not, but we're watching it play out right now on the national stage here in the United States. And my question that I was planning to pose to you is, should there be a consequence for wrongful prosecution? And the answer is yes. I know I'm absolutely destroying the rest of my podcast today. The answer is yes. There should be a consequence for wrongful prosecution. Why? I'll explain that as we go. Okay. So if you want to catch that part, hang with me a few more minutes. It's not going to be a long one today. Hey, everybody, tip of the day. Let's do that too, real quick, because I forgot to do that earlier. Do everything from a place of love and to build relationships. And if you can't do that, stay neutral. Everything from a place of love and to build relationships. And if you can't do that, stay neutral. Let's break down this wrongful prosecution concept into relational terms. As you know, obviously, wrongful prosecution is a legal term. This partly came up because of all the review that I was doing in the debate stuff. There was this part in there where Kamala Harris talked about Trump being prosecuted 30 something times and this and being indicted and doing this and all this stuff. And I was thinking, what if it's not right, like many Republicans are saying? What if it's not? What if it's inaccurate? Does that justify Trump's decision to say that he's going to go after everybody who participated? Well, obviously that's a pretty tricky question, right, folks? Because coming from the person themselves, it's hard to believe whether, let's be real. If you were prosecuted, you would probably say it was wrong, even if it wasn't wrong. Right. So that creates a challenge there. But if in fact it is a manipulation and a use of the judicial system, as many Republicans are saying, should there be a consequence if it's churned over and they discover through investigatory processes that it was wrong from the beginning, that it never should have been from the beginning? What would that be like in relationship terms? It'd be like tattling on your sibling for something they didn't actually do. Anybody been there before? I got an older brother, and I saw that happen a few times, where something would be exaggerated, maybe, or just straight up lied about, or maybe he just didn't know, and so he made it up because it made him look good, right? How about telling a lie about your girlfriend or your boyfriend? That could be a wrongful prosecution in relational terms. It could be exaggerating about your spouse's mannerisms or behaviors in order to gain favor of a third party. For instance, when you and your spouse are in an argument or a fight and you leave and there you go off, and instead of just venting, you go off and in an attempt to be selfish, to gain favor of a third party. By the way, this is oftentimes, this is a clinical lens here. Oftentimes when I see people who cheated on their spouse, that comes into play. They wrongfully prosecute their spouse by exaggerating something and then getting sympathy from a third party, and wham, bam, there it is. It's all over. They get the sympathy, and then they cheat, and then now who's really at fault at this point, right? These are all relational examples of what we would see as wrongful prosecution. And can we agree? Let's just go in with these relational ones. Forget all that political stuff. These relational ones, would you agree? I mean, I think we could agree that these are relationally unhealthy, inappropriate behaviors to engage in, right? I hope you're with me on that. If we're not, go ahead, do this. Turn this off. Go see one of the other podcasts we have. There's a lot of them out there. So the next question then becomes, if we could agree that these are unhealthy relational behaviors, to wrongfully prosecute or to tell a lie about your sibling or your spouse or your girlfriend or boyfriend or your parents. People do that all the time too. It's those sympathies, anything to gain sympathy, right? Or to justify a behavior that isn't accurate and knowingly isn't accurate. Because that's what a wrongful prosecution would be. Knowingly inaccurate information in an attempt to defame or destroy somebody else's life, career, political agendas, stuff like that. So should there be a consequence to it? I told you there earlier, the answer is heck yes. There absolutely should. Why? I got 3 reasons for you that are really simple. 2 of them are very similar. It destroys trust. Means relationships can't foster. And if you can't foster relationships, guess what? We cease to be relational people. We're all at that point, all we are is power hungry, fear mongering, mean, cruel, evil, whatever terminology you want to use there, people. All right. It's divisive. Some say divisive, some say divisive, potato, tomato, tomato. What it does by design is wedges in between people, making it hard for them to have healthy, trustworthy relationships. Okay. It encourages payback. And unfortunately, that's the tie into my little rant intro. What we have right now is a lot of payback being encouraged. People are literally like, the humanity is lost when I see people saying things like, it's too bad they missed. It's too bad the guy didn't have a ghillie suit so that he could have gotten a lot closer. It's Trump's fault that somebody was trying to kill him. I mean, come on, folks. There's no humanity in those kinds of assertions without fact. There's no humanity in there. Does it come from a place of love and an attempt to build relationships? Does anybody understand that when that fireman died in that first assassination attempt, that was a family that still aches today? It doesn't matter what their political views are or were or whatever they're going to become. They're hurt. They're suffering. And for people to bring it into the forefront and say, well, he should have been killed. Like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? That's unacceptable, folks. But what do we do about it? What do we do? Not about the violence, but about wrongful prosecution. What are the consequences for it? Without getting into a ton of detail, I'm going to give you the simplest outline ever. There's 2 things that should happen when somebody is wrongfully accused of something they did not do, and it is panned out, proven over time that is the case. Number 1, every consequence should be designed to grow the person. It's not about punishment, folks. You've heard me talk about this in the past. It's not about punishment. Although punishment may look like it's part of the deal, it's got to be designed to grow. It's part of the reason why we have so many difficulties with the prison system the way that it is. Much of the time, the prison system is to hold and contain and not to grow anybody. And they've done a lot of things in the last 30, 40 years. It's gotten better. But is it good? No, it's not good yet. But it's also no good to just do nothing. Doing nothing creates a desire for people to do more. That's the encourages payback part, that tit for tat. Well, if I'm not going to get in trouble for it, then what's the incentive to do it correctly? I'll just wait. I'll steal everything that you have. It will then become mine. And what are they going to do? What are they going to do? If they're not going to, do some kind of a appropriate consequence to the behavior. But the consequence should be designed to grow the individual. And the second part is reconciliation. Put it right in front of their face. Here is the damage you did. That could be a financial cost. That could be a relational cost. Having to look in the eyes of somebody that you harmed. It's not easy, folks. You ever tried it? Even when you do it on accident and you have to look them in the eyes, it's not easy. But what happens is it leads to the opportunity for full forgiveness. Forgiveness is a choice. You could choose to forgive. Reconciliation is helpful for many people in the forgiveness process. When we are hurting really, really, really bad, it's really hard to forgive. Can we do it? Yes, you can do it. I can do it. Is it hard? Absolutely. But there should be a consequence. So let me give you an example before we let you go. An example of what this might look like. If I were working with somebody as a client, and let's say I had a group, right? So I got a group of 6 people, let's say, that I meet with. And I establish right from the beginning that, hey, everything that's said in this group is confidential. Anybody who I discover has taken any of the content from this group outside of the group and destroyed the fabric of safety that I am trying to create, I'm going to be really clear. There will be a consequence and it will be severe. That doesn't mean I'm going to shoot them or beat them or anything like that. But there's going to be a severe consequence. So let's say this particular group is a group that they chose to be in. They've paid their fees and everything. And and then all of a sudden we get there and we realize that, 3 group sessions in, somebody's out there talking a bunch of stuff about others in the group online or, in the community or whatever. Well, there must be a consequence. In this particular situation, that would be a social consequence. So this is how it would go down. This is how I've done it in the past and how I would do it again. Because the idea is to grow the individual, give them a chance to reconcile with the group at some point. The group's process is going to be to learn to forgive. But oftentimes, in order for them to forgive, there has to be something that separates them, right? Because when we don't feel safe up close, what do we got to do? Love them at a distance. Okay. So what I would typically do in this scenario is I would work with the group as a whole on how to forgive somebody who harms us. Okay. So that's one aspect. On the flip side of that, I'd work with the individual. I would not have them in the group anymore because that would continue to tear at the fabric of the safety of the group. And if appropriate, after the appropriate growth has occurred and the opportunity presents itself to have the group and the individual reunite, in order to do reconciliation, if it were safe to do that, that would be ideal because that would grow the person. So first, we use the social arena, right? There's social constructs that are there for a reason. And we say, hey, you broke the social constructs that we had in place. You knew them. Everybody knew them. You're out. It's kind of like being banished, but not completely, because I'm more concerned about the growth. So I would work with them separately and say, okay, so here's the deal. This is inappropriate social behavior. So we need to talk about what it looks like for you to make right as much as possible the wrong that you created. Right? That, my friends, is how you create growth in those situations. So when somebody is wrongfully prosecuted, let's say exactly the same scenario, except for the person didn't actually do anything. It was somebody else who did it and pretended it was them. It's a little harder to get to the truth in that situation, but the process wouldn't be any different. The first thing I would do is pull the one person who we think did it out of the group and say, hey, look, you're not safe. Even if you didn't do this, whether you did this or didn't do this is irrelevant at this moment. Because with you in there, you're not safe or they're not safe. Because somebody's out to get you or you're out to get the group, right? Either way, I don't want you there. My job is to help you stay safe. So as time goes, we find out, oh, it was somebody else. I'm going to immediately remove them from the group. I would, of course, offer an invite for the other to return if they want to. They may not want to at that point. But if they did, they would, of course, be welcomed back because they did nothing wrong. And then I would take that other person, and the consequence would be much, much worse. It's not punishment, but the idea of doing something like that that is so deceptive and destructive is hugely problematic socially in every way. They've set it up to where there's a bunch of people that will never trust them again, which is, going back full circle, what many of the Republicans are saying right now. Right or wrong, I don't know. I'm not in the courtroom. I have my thoughts, I have my opinions, but they're irrelevant at this moment because I don't have the court documents. I don't have all the cases. I don't have all the timelines. Neither do you, most likely. But if he's being wrongfully prosecuted here and they discover that, how is anybody going to trust the folks that did this? You wouldn't be able to. And I just made a relational case for it. Now you know why. Again, I'm not saying I know which way this is going to go. I really don't. I don't. I know many people who pretend they know, but the reality is there's too many facts that are being kept secret, lies that are being told and manipulating. And I, unfortunately, like Barack Obama at one point said, the easiest way is to create enough chaos that nobody knows what to believe anymore. Well, folks, here we are. Barack Obama was right. He said that's the easiest way to tear America apart. And he verbally created the blueprint. And it sounds like people are doing it, unfortunately. It is what it is. My loyalties lie to the Father above. So I'm not super worried, but it is kind of annoying that we're in this position. I wish that we weren't. I wish that we were doing better than this. But unfortunately, this is where we are. I hope this was helpful at taking a look at what wrongful prosecution would look like relationally. My whole goal here, folks, is to help you see ways of looking at these really tough cultural issues in a way that will make sense. Too many of them are not. We got people being treated like they're not even people. That's just terrible. We have to look at the relational aspects. We got to put that back into the equation. And again, comes back to that tip of the day. Do everything from love and to build relationships. And if you can't do those, stay neutral. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. We appreciate our audience a lot, so we give you some simple ways to track us down. Please like, subscribe, and follow all the podcasts on different platforms, but you can also email us at healthyperspectives@protonmail.com, or you can check out our website at healthy-perspectives.com/podcast. It's a backward slash. So if you want to go to our landing page, if you go to healthy-perspectives.com, you'll still find us. You just got to click on the podcast button. Thank you so much.